Yeah, come on in. Oh, really?
Everybody loves a good lawn. I love my lawn, and if you have one, you probably love your lawn. And I never really thought about it much until I listened to a podcast on lawns. And what I realized is that lawns are pretty, but also pretty much useless and tied to our environmental crisis. To counter the rapidly approaching future of scarce water, unbreathable air, and a cancerous landscape, we ought to leave the traditional lawn in the past and implement sustainable landscaping practices for the future. A major issue of the lawn is its magnitude and excess. In America alone, there are 40.5 million acres of lawn. And how much do we spend on this lawn? Well, according to Elizabeth Kolbert in her article Turf War, written in 2008, we spend about $40 billion annually on our lawns. So, as Americans who spend a lot on many things, why should we care about this expense? Because not only are lawns affecting our wallets, they are affecting the environment. Take a moment to imagine yourself standing in a yard. You can feel the cool breeze, every single blade of grass beneath your feet, and you can smell the freshly mown lawn. But every step you take through that yard lifts up a plethora of chemicals, and every breath you take breathes in fumes from the maintenance equipment. Whenever we apply various maintenance practices to our lawns, we generally follow the logic, if some is good, more can only be better. However, consider fertilizer. Fertilizer has nitrogen in it, which helps plants grow. So if a little helps plants grow well, then a lot should help them grow better. But plants can only take in so much nitrogen, so the excess ends up seeping into the ground or goes into the atmosphere as nitrous oxide. Nitrous oxide, as explained by Another Downside to Your Classic Green Lawn by Sarah Zielinski in her 2010 article, explains that these are 300 times more effective at holding heat than carbon dioxide. As for the nitrogen that seeps into the ground and the chemicals from herbicides and pesticides, these have a major impact on our health as they have carcinogenic elements and cause asthma, as stated by Jeffrey Morris and Jennifer Bagby in their 2008 article, Measuring Environmental Value. As a result of these health risks, some areas have even gone as far as to banning almost all pesticides, such as Toronto, which Elizabeth Kolbert also explains in Turf War. Not only do the chemicals we use have an immediate impact on our yards, they have far-reaching impacts even out to the ocean, where algae blooms form and dead zones occur as a result. And this is described by Ignatieva and Hedblom in their 2018 article on alternative green carpet. And just as chemicals lead to the ocean, we bring in another disaster from far away, invasive species. When we plant our lawns, we use very few grasses, and most of them come from either Europe, Asia, or Africa, which, when considering climate, is really only suitable for northeastern America. This creates two problems. It means that our lawns are homogenizing the habitats around us, and whenever you have homogenization, which decreases biodiversity, the habitat is less stable and cannot support the native species. In addition to this, invasive species require a lot more resources to maintain and help survive, especially water. And water is a major concern when it comes to lawns. In Turf War by Elizabeth Kolbert, it is cited that the EPA carried out a study that found nearly a third of all residential water used in the U.S. currently goes towards landscaping. And under Stephen Dubner's podcast, How Stupid is Our Obsession with Lawns?, this comes to about 20 trillion gallons of water per year. When some regions, such as California, water is scarce, this is an even bigger problem. In California, the past 4 years have been the hottest in recorded history, and there's an expected population increase from 39 to 69 million between now and 2050. This increase in population puts a strain on the water supply, and when you have an increased demand with a decrease in supply, the costs of our water only go up, and therefore we are paying $40 billion a year. How can we mitigate the impacts of our lawns, however? One of two options. We can completely redesign our yards, remove the lawn, or we can try and minimize the impacts of the lawns we already have. When redesigning the landscapes, people go a few routes. On the extreme, you can completely let it go wild. Don't mow it, don't use any sort of treatment. And this allows for encourages biodiversity. You can also use clover instead of grass, as it uses less water. Or you can allow your lawn to become a meadow. Or, specifically, you can use xeriscaping, which is using native species and drought-resistant species of plants to redesign your yard in a beautiful manner. LA, for example, because of the drought, started using rebate programs. And since 2009, according to a Los Angeles Times article, No More Cash for Fake Grass, has removed 46 million square feet of grass. To maintain a lawn that you may already want to keep, you can use a few different methods of helping the environment. Irrigate based on the climate, not at a steady rate. This is because factors such as heat and humidity change by day, week by week, and whenever you use too much water, it's just a waste. Leave the clippings from your mown lawn on the lawn, as this stores carbon. NASA carried out a study in 2005 that found the total carbon stored by these clippings to be about 37 billion pounds a year, or, fun fact, about 147,000 blue whales. Also, one can use compost. This is a good fertilizer. It's a natural source of nitrogen, and it's not too much nitrogen. Synthetic fertilizers create chemicals and fumes whenever they're produced, and then only add chemicals to the ground whenever they're applied. And finally, use fewer herbicides and pesticides. Lawns are like well-manicured manicured monsters. With only the purpose of having the visual appeal of clearly controlled nature, they do little but create chaos. For every chemical dumped, every fume released, every plant and animal displaced, and for every water dropped wasted, we insist on conforming to the uniformity of American suburbia. To protect our environment, our health, and the future, we must make progress away from an antiquated 17th century idea. The lawn must disappear from front yards and parks. We must implement the many available alternatives to make our homes and futures beautiful.
Lily, the most compelling research that you came across while you were doing this?
Probably like just the degree to which realizing how many lawns we actually do have